What's up, gamers? Welcome to episode 25 of the Busted Buns video game podcast. And today, all episode long, we are talking the 2018 action-adventure game developed by Insomniac Games, Spider-Man. And, Red and I really aren't a fan of Spider-Man, but surprisingly, this game was very, very good. But we're going to talk about the combat, the gameplay, the world, story, characters, enemies, a little bit about the DLC. Red, I don't think you played the DLC, correct?
I did not. But I'll let you talk about it.
We'll touch on that. I'm not going to say too much about it because I didn't go back and review it. I just looked at the summary. And then we're going to give some final thoughts on the game. But I just kind of want to start off with, before I give it to Red and we talk about the combat. One of the cool things about this podcast is going back and kind of reminiscing and remembering these games.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, it does take up time to go back, and do some research. But when we ended last week, I was like, okay, cool. We can talk about Spider-Man. But then today, I'm preparing, I'm researching. I'm like, ooh, we can talk about Spider-Man. Like, I forgot how much I really enjoyed the game.
Such a fun game.
It's so cool going back to it and just realizing that. But we'll kind of sum up the game more in the final thoughts. But Red, on to you, the combat. Kind of give me your opinions of that in the game.
Well, the combat really is what keeps you coming back for more in this game. And it keeps you doing all the activities that you have to do around the city. But you're absolutely right. Like, this game was a bit of a surprise for us. We didn't expect to like it as much as we did, but just the brawling combat was so much fun. It reminded me very much of the old Batman, Arkham Asylum back in the day, like that style of just combos, using your web. The web was incorporated so well into the combat, and just the list of moves. It got overwhelming sometimes, the variety of things you could do, but just the combat, it was so smooth and so well done and so cinematic, because even when you're just hitting the basic attack button for a basic combo, they mix up the moves you do. And then, like I said, just getting the web incorporated, you can sling opponents around, you can jump up and pull opponents up into the air, slam them back in the ground. There's just so much. You can fight so many different ways. And that's without even getting into gadgets and things like that we're going to talk about here in just a second. But man, I was blown away by the combat. It's just, especially from a company like Insomniac Games that isn't really known for this kind of game. So they kind of came out of, or at least I don't think they are. I remember looking a while ago when this game first came out, and I did not believe that this was kind of
They did Ratchet and Clank, which it's not necessarily like this. It's more of a shooting game, Ratchet and Clank is. But the combat is different, but they do know a little bit of I don't know if you want, it's not really fighting,
action,
but it is, I guess, gunplay. It is combat in a way, but you got kind of more hands-on, a human fighting versus guns.
Yep. And just to me, just the fact that you could jump into a fight with 8 or 10 or 12 bad guys and just kick all their asses without too much trouble. Once you get powered up a little bit, once you get the hang of it, if you jump in like that right at the very beginning, or if you haven't played the game in a year like I did this week, then you might get your ass beat. But, it was so smooth combat. What was kind of your favorite part of the combat in Spider-Man?
Really? Okay, first of all, agree with you. Just hitting the square button, I believe, and then he would do a bunch of different things. I absolutely loved that. That was so simple, and it made combat look different, because there's there was probably a routine behind it. I don't know the algorithm or how they made that work, but it did make it feel like it kind of wasn't routine. And then one things that I loved the most was the finishers, where you hit the circle and the triangle. Those were so much fun to use. But overall, I just loved, you kind of touched on it, all the variety. There's all kinds of things that you could grab and throw. You had, your spider sense it was a part of it. Where you could dodge things. You had healing during all this, which actually, that's not really combat, but it allowed, you to go on and fight longer. So,
exactly.
Who's going to bitch about healing in the game? And then, the focus meter, was great. As you land hits, you get the that focus meter for either healing or finishers. But just, like I was saying, the variety of all the different things you could do. You had skills where you could, actually, those were incorporated as you got them. But the gadgets, you could choose different gadgets. You could fight enemies different ways, and different enemies had different strengths, and you had to fight them different ways. So just really all the variety. And here's how Spider-Man was a great game. Is that combat did not really get old throughout the entire game. And I don't know how much I played, but it's an open world game. I wouldn't say it's as big as most open world games, but I put quite a few hours into this game. And the fact that it didn't get boring was a testament to the game, but just also elaborated on that variety. I mean, there was just so much you can do, and that's really what I love the most about the combat.
Yeah, and I will say, you kind of mentioned the spider sense. I really like how that's incorporated. I mean, neither you and I are big, like, diehard Spider-Man comic or movie fans, but you know what? That's what always told him when danger was about to happen. So the way that they, like, had just a little visual indicator when you're in combat that you're either about to get shot or someone's about to land a punch on you, and you knew that's when you needed to dodge. Like, I thought that was very well incorporated, and it's just... It was a fun way. Like, you just get like a glowing, almost like a halo, or like a, you know, hey, whoa, something's going on, like around your head that tells you.
I like knowing when I'm about to get my ass beat. Like that. I love that.
I do too. But man, what really helped to keep that combat fresh all the way throughout, besides the variety of enemies and the skills you get as you go through, but man, just the gadgets that are at your disposal in this game. And, you know, it goes from the very basic, the web shooter, which I think you and I both used like more than anything else, but you just use it to like slow down and tie up opponents. But you had so many other gadgets you could use. You had like an impact web that immediately tied someone totally up, like a spider drone that would help you in the combat, an electric web that would shock people, like bombs and mines made with your web. So like there were such a fun variety of gadgets that really let you switch up how you played. And I, like we said, we use the web shooters the most, I believe both of us, but man, I really did like using the impact web. And also like if I was actually trying to stealth an area, I would use the trip mine quite a bit. Just like leave it somewhere, and as soon as somebody walked within a certain distance of it, it like immediately stuck them to a wall. So I really loved the variety of gadgets and kind of what they allowed you to do. But other than the web shooter, you know, your very basic one, what were some of the ones you found yourself using throughout the game?
Okay, first of all, the trip mine, those things don't ever work for me, no matter what game I'm playing. There's always that concept, usually, in a game. It never works, man. I put it in the best place, right where all the enemies have been walking. And you think, hey, this is a video game. They are programmed to walk a certain direction. And for some reason, they're like, well, he could put it down a trip mine, so we're going to change all the programming in this game, and we're going to make them walk a different way. That's what it feels like. But I did use the suspension matrix a couple times where you kind of would lift them in the air, and they were, I think, electrocuted was what it looked like. But basically, they went up in the air. They couldn't really do anything. And I love that because I love throughout the air combat in the game, like just shooting up to them and find them in the air, which, you know, even for Spider-Man, it doesn't make sense how he can float exactly. Like, I understand, like, well, okay, there's a lot of Spider-Man in real human life that doesn't make sense. But, you know, just floating in midair, you know,
just call it Zelda physics and we'll call it a day.
He got hover, gadget up his ass. I don't know. Anyways, but like you said, a lot of the gadgets I didn't use, the web shooters, mostly throughout the game. I did play around with some of them, like I said, the suspension matrix. I also used the concussion blast a couple times just to knock enemies back. The web bomb I did find very useful against some of the, I don't know if they were called brutes, but the bigger guys.
Oh, the big brawlers.
The big brawlers that you had to fight in the game. But other than that, like I didn't use them that, like, you know, the other ones I didn't use that much, but I did like that they were there. And, you know, and then also the skills that came along, like, you know, throughout the game, which obviously their skills / abilities, I always kind of ranked them together. But, you know, usually this game was the same. Like, there you get experience points, and then as you get experience points throughout the game, you get these skills. But I just loved how all those came together because it added to that variety of combat. It's like, you know, do this to, you know, I don't know if it was certain buttons. I think it was certain buttons, but just...
Some of them were.
Yeah, some of them were, but just different things that add to that variety and just... You know, here's the thing. Like, games can become overwhelming with how much they have in it. And this game had a ton of combat, had a ton of gadgets, had a ton of skills, but Insomniac brought that together so well and made it work. And that's a testament to them because that is a very difficult thing to do.
It really is. And I loved, like, those skill trees. You had, like, Innovator, Defender, Web Slinger, and it's just... I really loved how the skills kind of, instead of throwing new skills that you won't even use throughout the game, they really built on each other. Like, it started out with, okay, you have like a web throw where you can, you know, rope up one of your enemies, swing them around your head and throw them. But then that built into where you could disarm opponents with your webs. And then you could like start with pistols, and then it was rifles. And then you could even catch rockets out of midair and sling them around and sling them back at your opponent. So it's like the skills they kept it from getting too overwhelming because they just built naturally on each other. Like skills would just get a little more powerful or add a new wrinkle to it, where it was really the same base skill. It just had a new function, or like it was more powerful. And I loved using like that web throw and the weapon yank. Well, like I said, where you sling an enemy around up in the air and then chuck them back at people. Like, and then you get into things like the ground strike, where you jump down from somewhere up high and it's like a pound the ground and just sends out a shockwave that knocks everyone back. So it's like, I feel like all the skills were very well incorporated into the game without being overwhelming. I agree with you completely, 100% there. And then there's the skills that got into your movement, which we'll talk about movement here in a minute when we get to gameplay. But man, just being able to do like tricks in the air. You could do swing kicks. You could do a point launch boost where you touch down on something and immediately shoot off of it. I mean, it's just, the skills just built on each other incredibly well. And, one thing when it came to the combat that I noticed, like stealth was an option in the game. And there were some areas, especially when you kind of played it, you had to play as Mary Jane a couple times, like stealth was required. But man, in a game like this where the combat is as good and gratifying as it really is, like the brawling just felt so satisfying that I almost never used stealth. Like I almost never snuck up on enemies. I usually just jumped in or jumped down with like a ground strike and then just started throwing punches and kicks, man. And it's just like, it's good to me because I suck at stealth games in general. And so just running in balls to the wall is always my favorite approach. So I'm so glad that the combat was good enough that it really, really made me want to like just do away with stealth altogether unless it was forced on us. So that's
I told you, I've been getting better at stealth, and I actually used it in this game too, and it helped me out quite a bit because you're the run and attack approach, like with gunslinging, even though there's no guns. Didn't you say it works for you, but it never seems to work for me anymore. So I am putting that stealth into play. In this game, I loved it just the same. But anyways, and first of all, I do want to apologize to our listeners. I know last week kind of went a little bit over the time.
Yeah, we did.
Me and Red like to shoot for 45 minutes. That's a good time for us, and we think it's also a good time for our listeners, and we want to keep that consistent. So we're going to try to do better at keeping it for 45 minutes. And one of those things was not talking about the first topic for so long, but you know what? We didn't accomplish that goal. Anyways, gameplay. Let's move on. The combat was great. But the gameplay was also fantastic. And most people know what's coming up right here. And it's just web slinging throughout the city. This is like I said swinging throughout the city. I heard about this from so many people. They're like, oh, it's just really cool to swing throughout the city. I was like, that seems like a mechanic that would really get old quickly. And then you play the game and you're like, holy crap. This web sling is just a blast to swing between all these buildings. You can run off of them, and kind of going along with all the skills and the variety of the combat. There was also a lot of variety of how you could get around the city using your webs, jumping, running, etc. And just, it made exploring New York City so much fun.
It really did. And that was the first thing that really started popping out when I was kind of looking at reviews for this game, is like everyone's talking about the movement is some of the best movement in video games. Just the way you get around the city. And I was like, okay, I can see that as Spider-Man. But until you actually pick it up and play it, like I can't praise enough the job they did with just swinging around the city. I mean, it helps that like the city is beautiful. Like the Manhattan that you're on is a very beautiful city. It's got so many like kind of real world locations, but just the actions that you do while you're swinging around, the animations, the stunts you can do, like you said, running up buildings, jumping off ledges. I mean, it's the closest I've come in a video game to actually feeling like you truly are a superhero, just the way you swing around the city. So I'm completely with you. Like that was the first thing that jumped out to me in reviews, and it didn't even do it justice. Like it just blew my mind. But then, I mean, even when you're not doing combat and even when you're not doing that kind of stuff, or missions, just while you're swinging around, you get awesome music for one thing. You get like kind of that Spider-Man music. It's a little low key, but still good. But one thing that, other than the music that I really loved was the radio show that you would always get snippets of while you're just moving around the city. It was J. Jonah Jameson is the guy, and he was great in the Spider-Man movies, back in the like the Tobey Maguire ones. But man, like I loved those little snippets of his radio show, because he hated Spider-Man and he ragged on Spider-Man so much. So like I loved that little touch just while you're swinging through the city to have kind of like that background. Oh yeah, here's a news guy that hates you and just rails on you. So I loved that little touch while you were swinging around the city.
Yeah, didn't know you were going to throw it to me right there.
Sorry.
That's fine. But here's another thing that I loved is how easy they made it. Like, you didn't have to really aim for anything. You basically could hold down R2 the entire time, and it would catch something to, like, sling to. So, absolutely love that they made it so easy. And then also, they made it very quick. Absolutely love that. Like, you could get through the city. Fast travel, you basically didn't have to do. I did it very little, kind of. I always tend to do it more towards the end of the game, like, where I explore everywhere. It's kind of like, okay, I just want to do the missions or accomplish this certain task, so I'll just fast travel. But most of the game, I did not fast travel because I could get there so quickly by web slinging. Is it swinging or slinging?
Well, he slings webs, but then you swing from them. So I think you can say either one.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do, because I don't want to have to think about which correct one to use, because I have a beautiful Upland Wheat Ale in my hand, and I am enjoying that beer and this podcast. But anyways, kind of moving on from that swinging mechanic, because we can talk about it all day. It was awesome.
It would just be us praising it the whole time.
Yeah, it was fun as hell. Probably really one of the best things in the game. Yep. But then also, you kind of got some things like, all the different suits in the game, which, like I said, like we said, Red and I are not huge Spider-Mans. I've actually not seen, I don't think, any of the movies. Wow. Never really paid attention to it. And then the final thoughts, I'm not going to touch on that right now. But
it's a long way away.
Like, even though I didn't know the suits, I'm sure that they appeared throughout the games, the movies, if there was a show. I'm sure there was a Spider-Man show
there was
somewhere.
An animated show back in the day.
And then also the comics, like just all these suits, whether they were made up for this game or they were from something from the past, just once again, variety. And you're going to hear us say that a lot throughout this podcast. Yep. Just having all these different suits to change your appearance, which is something that we're starting to see a lot in games, and something that I love in games, but I don't use it a lot, because with the suits, I actually stayed with the I forgot which one it was. It was like the advanced suit, I think is what it was. You got it very early on in the game. Yeah. It looked like an advanced suit. It looked like a Spider-Man suit, but just a little more, technology in it. And I did use that one throughout most of the game because, not being a Spider-Man fan, I just wanted to look like Spider-Man. And
absolutely,
I don't know if is that something that you kind of experienced in the game, or did you switch suits a lot?
No, I didn't really switch suits either. I stuck with the advanced suit as well. And it's a lot of the other suits did look really badass. They looked cool. They had like the great color schemes or designs on them, whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm with you. I just wanted to look like Spider-Man. Now, I did like that the suits, you had to unlock them, which kind of gave you something to strive for, which we'll talk about collectibles and stuff here in a minute. But like, I feel like I've said that 4 times in this podcast. Sorry, we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that. I'll try to get away from that. I'm sorry. But no, just like being able to unlock the suits, and it unlocked a suit. Each suit had a suit power that came with it. And I loved that you didn't have to wear that suit to equip that suit power. Like, it's just when you got the suit, it unlocked that power for you to use with whichever suit you wanted. So,
other game developers, pay attention to that.
Like, I thought that was such an innovative approach, because I'm like, oh, that power is really cool, but that suit kind of looks like shit, or it's not Spider-Man. And I'm like, oh, wait, I can just equip that power with with the regular, like you said, the advanced suit, the default one. I'm like, well, fuck yeah, shit. So
loved it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of stuck with the advanced suit just about all the way through as well. But some of those suit powers were really cool. Kind of, which ones did you focus on more than others?
One, Spider Bro. I tried a couple of the other ones out here and there, and I don't know, none of them compared to Spider Bro. Just having something that would go around and fight enemies, shock them, and kind of neutralize them while, either one, you went up and attacked them or fought somebody else. Like, that Spider Bro just helped out so much. The iron arms, as soon as I saw that, like, I'm not afraid of spiders, but those iron arms just looked creepy as hell. So didn't even try that one. And really, Honestly, did not try many of them. I did use Unrelenting Fury. I don't even know. I don't even remember what that was, actually. I just know, it was a fury of attacks is what I'm guessing. But
I think your attacks were unblockable for a short time.
Yes, that's what it was. Your attacks were unblockable. But really, I didn't care for the suit powers. I was more into the suit mods. Powers, did you have any that you used?
I used battle focus a little bit because it filled up that focus meter really quickly, which let you do your finishers. And one quick more thing on finishers. They were fun to do. They all looked awesome. Yep. I know I kind of get back to combat, but like the cinematics on the finishers, I thought were absolutely stunning. I loved doing those. So I used the battle focus a lot. It helped you do your finishers, and it also helped you with your healing. So I was very much a fan of getting that focus metered. And I also kind of used resupply quite a bit because that refills your gadgets if you're using anything other than the web slinger, because the web slinger recharged by itself over time, but the resupply power would automatically refill your ammo for all your gadgets. So I use that one a lot throughout as well. I almost never use the spider bro, and now I kind of regret that.
Oh, it was an awesome power. Like I said, it's the only one that I use, but really the mods is where it was at. Like you could equip 3 of those. It's exactly what it sounds like. And you see them in all these other games. Basically just mods to increase your defense, increase your health, increase whatever. I found those to be extremely valuable in the game. So suit powers, didn't really use a lot. Suit mods, I did use quite a bit. There's a lot of them. We're not going to go through all of them. I don't even have which ones listed that I use because I think, depending on where I was at in the game and what certain combat I was going into, I switched them out. I'm kind of guessing you did the same thing, but let's kind of get to the districts in the game, which is basically the little challenge, not challenges because there were challenges actually, but just a little different things that you could do throughout each area of the game. First of all, I love that they divided into districts. Probably makes sense. I'm guessing New York does have districts within, I think most of this game was Manhattan.
Yeah, it was all on Manhattan Island.
I think Harlem is above Manhattan. Not positive on that. Sorry, anybody from New York City, if I pissed you off. I don't know the boroughs that well. But just
UTGPZ gaming bastard.
yeah. But here's the thing. Okay, the districts and all things to do in them were fun.
They were.
This is probably the one thing of the game that got a little bit repetitive, and a lot of that centers around the crimes. There was just too many crimes in the game. Now I know those tokens were valuable for buying suits, mods, gadgets, upgrades, whatever. But there's just too many crimes. The challenges, those were hard, I thought. So I did a little bit of challenges, but man, those were tough. But some of the other ones, and we've talked about this, sometimes I just love simple things. So find those backpacks and also those landmarks, that just allowed me to explore the city.
Oh, absolutely.
And in a game that had a lot of combat, that break to just do those backpacks and landmarks was really nice. But were there any other things to do in the districts that you really liked?
Well, I'm with you that I liked how they just divided up the Manhattan Island into these different districts, and each one, it was kind of like you had 5 tasks to do in every one until you cleared it. And you had, like you said, you had a good variety of things to do. You had the prisoner camps, the hideouts, the warehouses, the crimes, challenges, all that stuff. And it did, when you had that many districts and every one of them was go through and do 5 of whatever, it did start to get a little repetitive and kind of a little grindy, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
I still did it. I still went ahead and cleared every district because, why not? The combat was a blast, so I was on board with it. But it did get a little bit grindy. But those challenges were very tough. But I'm with you. Just the stuff that allowed you to explore the city, like you mentioned, you had the photo opportunities of the landmarks, the backpacks you collected, and then also what was the cat person who had you
Black Cat?
Thank you. Well, I guess that makes sense. But yeah, you had to spot her in a couple different locations. So I loved those kind of more just exploration, because again, just exploring that city was so much fun. And you kind of hit on the tokens and stuff. I liked how there were different kinds of tokens that unlocked that you could use to unlock, like you mentioned, suits, mods, gadgets, upgrades, all that stuff. I liked that there was a good variety of those. So it always felt like you were earning something beyond just experience. So
okay, first of all, fuck the pigeons in the district. those people, those birds, they were assholes. They were so tough. I did get better as the game went on, but boy, that pissed me off in the beginning. And then also, too many damn, like, suits, mods, gadgets, upgrades, whatever.
There were
It took too many challenge tokens. I already told y'all, the challenges were too damn hard, okay? So why are you pricing me out on fucking challenge tokens? I don't have that many, okay? So I can't buy all this crap. So that was one thing, one of the few things that actually did make me mad with the game was too many challenge tokens were needed.
And they were fucking hard. They were hard
to buy
challenges. Too
many games. And then lastly, we're not going to talk about this a lot, but the benchmarks, just basically rewards for just doing something a lot in the game, whether it was falling, climbing buildings, shooting your web, whatever. I like that, that's something for the completionists. Like, people that or people that don't have a lot of money and they get a game and they want to get the most value out of it. Like, those are there for them, not something that you need to do, but I love that they added it because no matter what you're doing, it feels like you're accomplishing something. But anyways, I want to get to the world because the game world was absolutely gorgeous. And on the PS4 Pro, which Red and I are lucky to both have a PS4 Pro and 4K, I'm a little bit better because I got HDR too. But anyways, this game world looked amazing. So Red, go ahead. What's your overall opinion?
So we've kind of already mentioned this, but it is a beautiful world. And one thing that I really loved about it, and you actually kind of mentioned this too, it is an open world game, but it's a smaller open world. And I thought that was perfect for just using your web slinging and swinging. And now you're in my head with that. But just to get around the city, and it was stunningly beautiful. I mean, I've been to Manhattan. I've spent time there. It is a very good recreation of the city. I mean, you see the landmarks that are like the real life landmarks, like your Central Park, the Empire State Building, Madison Square Garden, just like being able to see those landmarks in the game that, that I've actually seen in real life. And they're really pretty faithfully recreated. Like, I was a huge fan of that. And of course, then they put things in there like Stark Tower and stuff like that. That's from the Avengers. So, there's some artificial ones in there too.
But I like that. I really love those because one, they were high as hell. But you had, I think, Oscorp Tower and then the Avengers Tower. The Avengers Tower looked absolutely stunning. But see, I don't mind that. Like, when you get a game, you're not going to get a one-to-one replica.
Oh, absolutely.
And so adding those two buildings, I was cool with. Now, here's one thing I didn't like. I wish they would have had the I forgot what it's called, the new World Trade Center area.
I think it's just called One World Trade Center now.
Okay, I thought it was. I think it's Freedom Tower in One World Trade Center or something like that. But I would really like to see that memorial in there. I think that would have been a great tribute, to the people that lost their lives,
for sure.
I'll be honest, on that tragic day. So I think it'd been very cool to get that. And then also, it's the tallest building in New York. Now,
exactly,
they did have a building that looked very similar to that, but just, I don't know. I think it would have been great to have that in there as a great memorial to remember. Then also, it's the highest building in New York City. So I feel like you got to have that landmark, but really not going to complain about too much. And Red, I think I cut you off. I'm just going to keep on going with this.
Oh, it's okay. I'll let you run with it.
Here's the thing. You have been lucky enough to visit Manhattan. I have not visited New York City. Now, here's the thing. I hate crowded areas. Like, I live 3 hours.
Oh, you would fucking hate New York.
3 hours or a little bit over 3 hours from Chicago, and I hardly ever go because I just don't like dealing with the traffic and the crowds and everything. So, like, you would think with New York City that, like, I would absolutely hate going there, but I've always wanted to go there. I can deal with the crowd. I can deal with that for a couple of days, but it's kind of like you're saying, like, I've always wanted to visit New York City, but as I've gotten older, I'm kind of like, it's crowded, it's a lot, it's a hassle, it's inconvenient. And so I've kind of been like, stepping away from it a little bit. This game brought me back to New York City because I'm like, damn, this city, the game world is absolutely gorgeous. And just the thing that caught my eye was just all the water around New York City, which I think has to be replicated pretty good. Maybe not all the landmarks and the buildings, but the layout of the land, I would think, looks pretty similar to New York City. At least the map does. And like, I knew there was water around New York City, but until you're able to explore it, even if it's in a video game, you're just like, damn, this city is gorgeous. And so thank you for Spider-Man for making me now that I have kids, I don't know. They'll have to get a little bit older or go by myself. But now this reinvigorated my excitement for one day visiting New York City.
Well, and just on top of like the world itself, which it was very beautiful, especially like you get the sunrises, the sunsets.
Yes.
Like it all looked very gorgeous, but just the map itself. Like you mentioned, yes, it does look very similar to like the real Manhattan map with the outline and everything, but just it was a very good map in terms of like functionality for the game.
Yes.
Like the color was good, like the areas you hadn't yet discovered looked good, and as you discovered them, like it just really opened up, and just like I thought the map was very well done. And I know that's a little thing, but I've played enough games that have absolute shit maps in them.
Yep.
I can appreciate when there's a good map in the game. So
Red,
like,
a map is very, very important. So I gotta disagree with you, and that here's why. I spend a lot of time with kids on the pause screen. So I see this probably more than I actually play the game. So I think, like you say, it's not a big deal. It depends on what type of gamer you are, but the map or the hub, as I like to call it, is a huge deal to me because, like, when you hit that big button, whatever it takes you to, or the start button, it varies. But whatever that takes you to, it's on that screen a lot for me. So you give me that blue color. Like you said, the effect of the areas that you had not discovered yet, I thought was amazing. And then the music that they had going, I thought they absolutely nailed that. Might not be a big deal to some people. If you have kids, damn it, and you're on that pause screen, it's a big deal to you. I can guarantee it. So just absolutely love how Insomniac Games did that.
Oh, for sure. And, speaking of things that we loved in this game, and I think we both agree, the story was kind of getting off the world in the map, but the story was very, very well done. Like, I think we both really loved the plot of the game. And you're not going to rehash the whole thing, but like Otto Octavius, Dr. Octopus, had a great arc where he's just like, I've got this degenerative condition. I'm trying to develop something that will help people who will be immobile later in life. And it ends up like driving him crazy. I mean, very similar to what happened in like Spider-Man 2, the movie. And I loved his arc throughout it. But just the whole story with Martin Lee and the way they have Peter Parker and Mary Jane's relationship, it was all wound together very well. Like you had several different storylines going at the same time. And it could be confusing sometimes if they don't do it well. But I thought they did a great job making sure they stayed intertwined. And like I said, Dr. Octopus's story got time. Peter Parker and Mary Jane's story got time. Martin Lee's story got time. You even got the Miles Morales introduction. Like, so they wound the story elements together very, very well, I thought. So what was some of the story highlights for you that you enjoyed?
First of all, Norman Osborn, man. I could not figure out if I liked him the whole game or I didn't. And then, he's kind of a jackass. But at the end of the game, obviously, if you guys didn't know, there are going to be spoilers in this podcast. We probably should have talked about that at the very beginning. We'll try to remember that. But anyways, we are going to talk about the ending here coming up and everything. So if you haven't played the game, you might want to don't turn off the podcast. Just turn the volume down to where you can't hear it. So then we still get the stats.
There you go.
But anyways, Norman Osborn, like I went back and forth. Do I like this guy? Do I not like this guy? And then having kids, me having kids, and then seeing at the end why he's doing this, for me, it meant something. And, I really liked him. And then, like you talked about Dr. Octopus, or is it Dr. Octopus? It is.
Yep,
right?
Dr. Octopus.
Otto
Octavius.
Octavius, whatever his last name. Octavius, whatever. I thought his arc was one of the best arcs that I've ever seen. Like, in a video game, I guess you could say. It's definitely not the best arc that I've seen in a movie, but in a video game, like, I just loved his story and how he changed throughout the entire game. You kind of already touched on it. Peter Parker, Mary Jane, and then also Martin Lee, Miles Morales. Very cool setup for the next game. And I just kind of love the whole concept around Devil's Breath, being a virus created by Oscorp to cure genetic diseases. Like, that's not something you get a lot in games. Usually it's like really this bad guy that's trying to, blow up a city or blow up a country, land, whatever. Somebody's trying to destroy things, usually with power, explosions, strength, whatever. This game gave you something different in a virus, so I just absolutely loved that. And then there was just little things like the whole past between Martin Lee and Mayor Osborn and how they didn't really like each other, and how Mayor Osborn and Otto didn't really like each other. And
everyone seemed to hate Mayor Osborn, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then lastly, the prison break at the Raft. I just thought that was cool, how it all came together and everything. But anyways, that was basically our opinions on the story.
I thought it was great. It was great.
Let's talk about some of the characters and the enemies. They kind of really, some of the enemies are the characters in the game. But just overall, did you have some that you like more than others? What were your favorites? Which is the same fucking thing as asking if you like some more than others, but go ahead.
No, I was a huge fan of the cast. Like, of course, Peter Parker and Mary Jane are staples of Spider-Man, like that, and both like voice actors I thought did a great job. Yes. Yuri, like the cop that you're kind of working against, kind of the whole way. I thought was a really well done character.
She plays out, actually, she does play out in the DLC episode 2. I think it's episode 2, which actually is very interesting and really, I would say it actually does not arc her character very well because I was more confused after that, but just it was really cool, not ending for her, but to see her in a different light. But go ahead.
Well, that's good because I liked her characters. You're like always talking on the radio to her, and like she was always there, kind of in your ear, helping to guide you along. I mentioned earlier the radio host, J. John Jameson, loved that character. The voice actor did a great job. It was such a fun little side plot. Yep. And then I thought the bad guys really got some good time to shine.
Agreed.
I mean, like Martin Lee was, the main big bad, I guess, Mr. Negative, and he had a great story to him, of why he's doing what he's doing. And then, we mentioned Doc Ock had a great story as well. But man, some of the other, I loved how many other of the villains that they really managed
Octavius,
to get in
that's
there.
how you say it. I don't know why I made it so hard, but then you go with Doc Ock. I was like, damn it, I should have went with that, but go ahead.
But no, like I really liked how they got like Rhino, Electro, Scorpion, like Vulture in there, like these famous Spider-Man villains, and the way that like you had to fight all of them like separately, and every fight felt different. And then a couple of times you'd have to fight 2 of them at the same time, and they're like I think a Scorpion and Vulture were the 2 you had to fight at the same time. And like the way
you
they used their powers.
Did you have to do a Rhino and what was the other one?
Not Tombstone, not Electro, or maybe it was Electro.
Vulture,
actually.
no. Gosh, I forgot. Scorpion and Rhino. I believe Scorpion joined the fight with Rhino at the construction area or whatever. But go ahead.
Yeah, but I liked how they would like tag up, and their powers would kind of complement each other well. Yeah. So I thought the cast was top notch. Like I said, the Peter Parker Mary Jane relationship, the voice actors just knocked that out of the park. Agreed. And the story did those 2 so much justice. But what were some of your standout characters or enemies? Like we said, they kind of go hand in hand in this. What were some of your favorites?
First of all, I love Tombstone. He was just, I would call him laid back. He was a cool dude though. So
totally forgot about him.
He didn't really have a big part in the game, but absolutely loved him. Wilson Fisk, I don't know how I feel about that character. Like, he was introduced obviously very early on. He's kind of there throughout the game, but he feels so insignificant. Now, I know he was in prison for most of the game, but I really thought his character was a little bit of a waste. Did love the Martin Lee kind of storyline, as you said. Jefferson Davis, the cop, and being Miles Morales' dad, and like everything that he kind of went through, and how he was killed. Obviously I didn't love that because it was somebody that was killed, but as a storyline, as a character, like I love him as a character because he was a hero. And okay, I'm not going to get into what's all going on in the world right now, but it's just good to see a good cop. We'll just say that.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
But Norman Osborn, you've heard me talk about him.
Good character.
Silver Sable, man. Just a bitch, man. Just an absolute bitch. But I liked her. I liked her because, she knew what was up. She absolutely knew what was up. She's going to get the job done. And so, you know what? I love that. And then also, like you already said, the Sinister Six, Vulture, Scorpion, Electro, Rhino. I guess the other 2 would be Martin Lee and Otto. I don't really know what the other 2 were.
That'd be my guess, yeah.
Yeah. And then lastly, the Black Cat. She was included in the first episode of the DLC where you kind of go on it's called The Heist, I believe. And she kind of just makes trouble for Peter Parker. But I love that they introduced her like during the regular story. Just kind of like, a past fling of Peter Parker. Just kind of, well, first of all, she was good looking too. Kind of just bringing her back. Like I thought her storyline and how she played into the game was just, a little more refreshing, I guess, a little bit different. I just really, really liked that. So that's really all I had on the characters and the enemies. Did you have any more?
No, not really. I do agree with you that like Kingpin felt like a bit of a wasted character. And I get that the purpose was, you put him away early, and that kind of opens up the city for everything else that happens with Mr. Lee or Martin Lee. I'm Mr. Negative / Mr. Lee. Martin Lee. Jesus, I'm just going to stop talking now. But no, I agree with you. Like Kingpin was a little underutilized. I liked that there was a good variety of the enemies. Like you said, you had Silver Sable's agents. You had like the demons that were following Mr. Negative. Like, so I like that they kept a good variety of the enemies in there. It kept the combat refreshing, and it made you feel like there was something progressing as the game went along in the city. Like, things were really changing. So you kind of hit on the DLC a little bit, and I do slightly regret not playing it. I don't play a lot of DLC just in general, a little bit of, backstory. I don't play a lot of DLC in general because usually once I'm done with the game, I move on to a new one. Yeah. And I have a hard time picking a game back up again. Yeah. So I did not do the DLC on this one, but just real quick, what did you think of it? I know you mentioned you liked the Black Cat, you liked Yuri having a little bit more of a storyline, but overall, did you think it was a pretty solid, good purchase?
Well, first of all, when I got them, they were on sale for, I believe, 50% off, and they're
$5.
Yeah,
it's a great purchase.
It's still right there, but when I got the game, I got a little bit later, and so when I got it, the DLCs were already out. So for me, it was kind of like I just played. I would say I played the game all the way through, but no, I hit a level about 2 hours before I completely finished the game. Went off to some other game. I don't remember what it was. It might have been Death Stranding, actually. And then so
timing wise,
came back to it and then realized that, man, I only had 2 hours to beat this game. But I'm actually like the opposite. I actually do play a lot of DLC because just adds content to the game. And I think a lot of times, I do get away from the game and go on and play other games, but it's a good way for me to go back and reminisce and kind of, like we did today, like researching for all this. DLC kind of serves the same function where you're just going back and remembering the game a little bit, but we won't really talk a lot about the DLC. I really did enjoy it. Kind of kept on that repetitiveness, it introduced new things to the district. I was kind of I didn't really need that because I feel like I already got too much of it in the game. Yeah. But the story that came along with it, episode 1 was the Black Cat. Episode 2 was a Hammerhead and Magia or Magia or whatever. I think that's actually a gang. I don't know.
I'm not
Sorry
sure.
for all you Spider-Man fans out there. I am not a Spider-Man fan. Red's not a huge Spider-Man fan, so we know we're getting some stuff wrong. We apologize. We don't mean to piss anybody off. I just don't know what the fuck I'm talking about sometimes. But and then the last one. I thought the last one that kind of wrapped the whole story up. Silver Lining is what it was called. It has Silver Sable kind of coming back and concluding her storyline. Overall, I was very impressed. They weren't that expensive. A little bit repetitive and tedious in the point of dropping those things back into the district. But overall, the story, really wrapped those up very well, and they were short. Good. So I was a fan. But Red, go ahead, or not go ahead. Kind of go into our final thoughts. Kind of give me your final thoughts overall on how you felt about the game.
Well, I mean, I loved it at the end of the day, and not being a huge Spider-Man, not being a huge comic book fan, it caught me off guard. Like, it was a game that was getting a little bit of publicity, but not a lot. And then just great review after great review came out, and people on Discord and Twitter were praising it. And I'm like, well, shit, I guess I'll buy this game. And it blew me away. I mean, it had a great story. It was a gorgeous game, especially like we said on the PS4 Pro with the 4K. The combat was great. The story was great. Just moving around the city was one of the most liberating feelings. It's just so, all in all, it was a game that shocked me and surprised me, and I'm so glad I picked it up and played it, though. So what about you?
I'm the same way. I was never planning on getting it because I'm not a Spider-Man fan. Did not think I would enjoy the game, and just like you, I heard everybody talking about it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to check out this game. I mean, as soon as I started up, I'm like, holy shit, New York City looks absolutely gorgeous, and just all the combat, all the variety, the characters, the villains, the music. I thought the music was spectacular throughout the game. And it was. You all know me. I absolutely love music in games. And I think it makes a huge difference in a game. But just the way, the characters in the cinematics, the cutscenes were presented, it kind of made it feel like a movie. And it's a game that, this is probably the closest to 100% I've been in a long time. I always set out to get 100% in the game. Never, ever get close to that. But this is probably the game that I was the closest, and that's a testament to the game, that I enjoyed it so much that I was willing to do all this, these tedious tasks and everything, to get close to that, just to really not to do it to get 100%, but just to do it to get all these upgrades and get to experience all the variety in the game. So for me, I was absolutely blown away. Like I said last week, I wasn't that excited about talking about it, and then going back and researching this week, I remembered how much I actually enjoyed the game. So They nailed everything. They nailed the combat, the gameplay, the world was beautiful, the characters, enemies, the cutscenes, the story, everything. We have our, gripes here and there. Mostly it's with tedious stuff, but there's so many things that Insomniac Games did so well that made this a just absolutely spectacular game. Anyways, that's it. Had a blast talking about it. Red,
yes, why
don't you go ahead and wrap us up?
Well, first of all the links for this stuff is going to be down in the description here for the podcast. But if you want to, you can support us on Patreon or PayPal. Patreon's a bit of a recurring thing, whereas PayPal is more one time. If you can't support us financially, we absolutely totally understand that. We know there's a lot of shit going on in the world right now in a lot of people's lives. But definitely please leave us a review and rate us. We love those 5-star reviews and 5-star ratings. Even if you didn't like us, go ahead and lie a little bit. We appreciate it.
Definitely.
And we also have a couple of websites out there for gaming merchandise. We have tgpzgaming.com and twoguysPlayingZelda.com. On the first one, you can get gaming-related merchandise, and of course, on the second one, you can get Zelda-related merchandise.
Yep.
And we may earn a little bit of a commission on that. It is affiliate sales, so we may earn a commission on that. But go check it out. There's a lot of good stuff out there. Hick, how about you go ahead and tell us about the social media?
Yeah, we got some Facebook groups going on. A lot of fun over at those. We got Gaming Realm and Zelda Realm. Obviously, with Zelda Realm, we only talk Zelda. Gaming Realm is like all video gaming. PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, PC.
Yep.
We got 2 YouTube channels. Our Two Guys Playing Zelda. That's where everything started. Over 10,000 subscribers. Got a lot of videos. Go check that out. Our TGPC Gaming YouTube. Basically, I just put the podcast on there. Our Discord. We have a blast on our Discord. We talk about all those systems I already mentioned. We talk about sports. We talk about booze, which is really the funnest channel on there.
That's a good channel.
But we just talk really about everything. A lot of it is gaming, but we talk about a lot of different things. And then you can find us all over social media, Twitter, Instagram, and then we also had some Facebook pages. Absolutely had a blast today. Red, I think he had a blast. Just a game that absolutely shocked us. We had so much fun playing. It's sad that it's coming to the end and we can't talk about it again, but we will talk about another game. I don't know if it'll be next week or not, but we'll talk about another game sometime soon.
At some point.
Anyways, y'all keep on gaming, stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you on the next episode.